HarperCollins presents Peach Street to Lobster Lane, Coast to Coast in Search of American Cuisine, by Felicity Cloake. Read by Felicity Cloake. For Daphne and Freddie, the best excuses ever. Introduction, in which everyone tries to put me off. He was fairly happy, except that, like many people living in Europe, he would rather have been in America. Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises. Don't be ridiculous, you won't die. As parting words before a bike ride go, these aren't exactly reassuring, but then I have just spent my farewell meal warning everyone I might be coming home in a box. Not that death is on the official itinerary. In fact, in the excitement of preparation, the possibility of expiring en route hadn't really occurred to me. It was only when I began telling people that, having pedalled round France and the UK for previous books, my next cycle tour would take place across the Atlantic, that this sunny optimism took a knock. While I waffled about the joy of the open road, a surprising number of them merely frowned and said, "Yes, but is it safe?" The Olympic gold medal winning rower, who now describes himself as the man who used to be James Cracknell, following a near-fatal collision with a petrol tanker and a serious brain injury while cycling in Arizona in 2010, comes up more than once in these conversations. Pointing out that he'd made a full recovery and was now the Conservative Party candidate for Colchester didn't seem to help much, oddly enough. Despite not having heard his story, the American friends of friends who've kindly offered to host me in Beverly Hills are so independently anxious about my plans that, after trying and failing to dissuade me with links to newspaper articles on cyclist fatalities, they send our mutual acquaintances a touching email with the subject line, "Please try to convince Felicity that cycling from San Francisco to LA is a bad idea." The question often goes beyond a dearth of bicycle lanes, however. America itself is apparently one step away from the Foreign Office red list in the minds of many Brits. Even my mother, whose attitude to her offspring is best described as no nonsense, makes me promise her, fingers crossed behind my back, that having successfully navigated most of the way around both France and the UK solo, I'll never be alone on this trip, revealing a hitherto unguessed of and quite irrational conviction that the US is full of serial killers with nothing better to do with their time than lie in wait for idiots like me to ride past. A few people more reasonably bring up the cicada apocalypse, the biblical plague of insects due to erupt in the Midwest in spring 2024, which I have to concede does sound like a pretty bad omen, as is the unnerving news that the road I'm planning to take out of San Francisco has just fallen into the Pacific Ocean. Others fret that I'm going to die either of starvation in a lonely desert or of a surfeit of saturated fat in a drive-through car park. Seemingly, Americans exist solely on fast food in the European mind. "Well, I hope you like hamburgers," my dad says with a wry laugh, as if the prospect of eating nothing else for 3 months straight is going to put me off. As it happens, I love hamburgers, but I'm also pretty confident that this unimaginably large and incredibly diverse country has a little more to offer. Plus, I've already booked my outbound ticket, and it's non-refundable. In truth, this is a long-cherished dream of mine, not easily punctured by even the most well-meaning worrywarts. Even before I discovered the profound joy of cycle touring, I was in love with the time-honoured trope of the American road trip, just catching sight of the old Rand McNally Atlas on the bookshelf. Souvenir from a long-ago holiday has always been enough to make my feet itch with the urge to disappear into that vast, seductive emptiness across the ocean. Perhaps it's living in a tiny one-bedroom flat in the middle of the biggest city on the small, dark island of Great Britain that makes me yearn for space, but I don't think I'm alone in feeling drawn to the notion of the lonely road, the fantasy of following it into an endless horizon. Who, Brit or not, hasn't watched Thelma and Louise or Into the Wild and dreamt of a similar, if ideally less definitive escape? As travel writer Jamie Jensen, who grew up along Route 66, puts it, poets and artists from Walt Whitman to Muddy Waters have long sung the praises of rolling down the highway, and no matter how times have changed, we still believe there's nothing more essentially American than hitting the road and seeing the country. Because, established by those escaping cramped, claustrophobic societies, the United States has always been a country on the move, new arrivals pushing ever further west in their quest for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This national restlessness was encouraged by the rapid spread of the car. Astonishing fact, in 1927, 80% of all motor vehicles worldwide were in America, and the expansion of the road network, which turned travel from a chore into a pleasure. Or a potential pleasure, anyway. When I first crossed the Atlantic at the age
Sample complete. Ready to continue?